The first thing we noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful quiet you get deep in the woods, where insects stitch the air with sound and wind moves through leaves like distant surf. This was something heavier, the kind of quiet that presses on your ears until you begin hearing things that aren't there, or things that shouldn't be. We found a rope ladder hanging from the sky with no branches above it. Marcus said it first, like he was reading a sentence he didn't understand. The three of us stood at the edge of the clearing, boots sinking slightly into damp moss. The air smelled of cold pine sap and wet soil. Somewhere far off, a crow called once, then fell silent as if the forest itself had corrected it. The ladder hung 20 feet ahead of us. Thick rope sides, wooden rungs darkened by age. It swayed gently in the still air. Above it, nothing. No tree limb, no canopy hook. The ladder simply rose upward into the open sky between the towering pines, and then vanished into shadow about 30 feet up. "That's a trick of perspective," Marcus muttered. He was the surveyor among us, the one with maps folded like origami inside his vest. If something didn't make sense, Marcus forced it to. "There has to be a branch up there," he said. Lena shaded her eyes, staring upward. "There isn't." The clearing was wrong. That was the second thing we noticed. Too round, too deliberate. The surrounding trees leaned inward like walls, their trunks tall and black with damp bark. But the ground inside the circle was bare except for sparse grass and patches of churned soil. And right beneath the ladder, footprints. Marcus crouched first. "They're fresh." I knelt beside him. The impressions were deep and irregular, like someone had stood here shifting their weight repeatedly. The soil was disturbed, packed down as if multiple people had gathered in one tight cluster. Or one person moving a lot. Lena pointed. "There." Something pale clung to the lowest rung. A strip of fabric. Marcus pulled it loose carefully, tore free with a faint dry sound. "Cotton," he said. "Shirt fabric, maybe." The edge wasn't cut. It had been ripped. The ladder creaked softly above us. We all looked up at the same time. It had begun to sway more noticeably. Left, right, left. There was no wind. The forest around us remained completely still. Not a leaf moved. Marcus straightened slowly. "Okay," he said, voice thinner now. "Maybe someone rigged it with a line above the canopy. Hunters do weird stuff sometimes." "Hunters don't climb 30 feet into empty air," Lena said. The ladder swayed again. Then it stopped. Perfectly still. The silence thickened. I felt it then, the strange sensation of being watched. Not from the trees. From above. Marcus stepped forward. "Let's just see how high it goes." "Marcus," Lena said, but he had already grabbed the lowest rung. The rope twitched. Not violently, just a small, tightening motion, as if something above had felt the touch. Marcus froze. "Did you see that?" "Yeah," I said quietly. The ladder creaked again. This time the sound traveled upward, rung after rung, like something shifting its weight far above the treeline. Marcus released it. For a moment nothing happened. Then the ladder slowly lowered. Not falling, lowering. A single additional rung slipped down from the darkness above, the rope extending silently. Then another. Then another. Lena whispered, "It's reacting to us." Marcus stared upward. "How is that even possible?" I followed the ladder's length into the sky. The sunlight ended abruptly about 30 feet up, replaced by a strange dimness that didn't match the afternoon light filtering through the trees. The ladder vanished into that darkness. Not shadow, darkness. The kind that looked deep, endless. Marcus took a step back. "Okay," he said, forcing a laugh. That's not normal." Behind us the forest made a faint sound. A twig snapping. We turned. Nothing moved. But the quiet had shifted again. The woods felt attentive, like we were part of something unfolding. Lena spoke without looking away from the ladder. "What if it's not for going up?" Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" "What if it's for coming down?" The ladder creaked. Something moved above. A faint sliding sound. Wood against rope. Then, A new imprint appeared in the soil beneath the ladder. None of us had stepped there. Marcus whispered, "Did you see that?" Another impression formed beside it. Slowly, as if invisible feet were descending rung by rung. The ladder dipped slightly under a weight we couldn't see. Another step appeared in the dirt. Lena grabbed my sleeve. "Something's on it." The ladder swayed again, gently, rhythmically. More impressions formed, one after another, a path of fresh footprints appearing in the clearing. But they never reached the ground. They stopped halfway between the ladder and us. Marcus's voice shook. Maybe it's just the soil collapsing." The rope suddenly tightened. The ladder lifted 2 feet off the ground. Then 3. The bottom rung hovered at chest height now. Waiting, the darkness above thickened. I realized something that made my stomach drop. The ladder wasn't descending. It was inviting. Lena whispered, "Don't touch it." Marcus stepped closer anyway. "I just need to see what's up there." "Marcus." He grabbed the rung again. This time the ladder jerked violently upward. Marcus shouted as his feet left the ground. The rope tightened around his wrists where he clung to it. "Hey, Hey!" The ladder began pulling him up. Not fast, steady, deliberate, rung by rung. Lena grabbed his leg, but the force above dragged them both upward until she slipped and fell back into the dirt. Marcus kicked wildly. "Something's pulling it." His head rose toward the dark gap in the air above the trees. And for a moment, just one, I saw it. A shape inside the darkness. Long, angular, limbs folded wrong, waiting where the ladder disappeared. Marcus screamed. Then the darkness swallowed him. The ladder snapped upward like a recoiling snake. The bottom rung vanished into the sky. The clearing fell silent again. Lena and I stared upward, shaking. The sky above the trees looked completely normal now. Blue, empty, no ladder, no shadow, nothing. We ran. Branches tore at our clothes as we crashed through the woods toward the trail we hoped still existed. Neither of us spoke. Not until the forest began making normal sounds again. Wind in the leaves, insects buzzing, the distant cry of birds. Then Lena slowed. Her face had gone pale. "Do you hear that?" I listened. At first there was nothing. Then, a faint creak. Wood against rope. I looked up, high above the treetops, far beyond where any ladder should reach. Something thin and dark swayed against the sky, lowering, slowly, searching for another clearing. The first whisper was so quiet we almost missed it. A breath of sound, barely louder than the damp leaves shifting beneath our boots. "Daniel!" We stopped walking. The forest around us had gone strangely still. Not the usual hush of deep woods, but something heavier, like the air had thickened between the trees. The smell of wet bark and rotting leaves hung low to the ground. Marcus looked over his shoulder. "Did one of you say something?" I shook my head. Lena didn't answer at first. She was staring toward the clearing ahead of us. "That came from over there." We'd been hiking for most of the afternoon, following a faint animal path that twisted through old-growth pines. The map Marcus carried had stopped matching the terrain about an hour back, but the path kept pulling us deeper. The clearing appeared suddenly between the trees. Too round, too deliberate. The ground inside was bare except for a single fallen log lying across the center like a spine. Moss coated most of it, dark green and damp, except for a long hollow opening near the middle where the trunk had rotted through. Cold air seeped from that hollow. I felt it against my ankles. Lena whispered, "That's where it came from." Marcus gave a small laugh. "You think a log said your name?" "Not mine," she said. She looked at me. "Yours." My mouth felt dry. "Daniel." The voice had sounded faintly familiar. Not exactly anyone I knew, but close enough to make something uncomfortable twist in my chest. Marcus walked into the clearing first. The ground squished softly under his boots. Moss had been disturbed near the log, torn in irregular patches as if something heavy had shifted there recently. He crouched beside the trunk. "Hollow," he said, Up close, the opening looked wrong. The wood around it had splintered outward, jagged like teeth. Inside was darkness so thick it swallowed the light. Marcus reached out and touched the bark. He flinched. Jesus! What? Lena asked. It's warm. I stepped closer. Warmth drifted from the hollow like slow breath. Not the dry warmth of sunlit wood. This felt damp and organic, like the inside of an animal's mouth. Marcus shone his flashlight inside. The beam slid along the interior walls. The hollow went deeper than it should have, tunneling through the trunk and into the earth beneath it. Claw marks scored the inside. Long grooves gouged through softened wood. Lena crouched beside him. Something's been living in there. Marcus shook his head. Nothing big enough to make marks like that. We stared at the hollow. A smell began drifting out. Sweet at first, then sour, like mushrooms growing in wet soil. The whisper came again, this time louder. Marcus. Marcus jerked upright. That wasn't funny. Neither of us had spoken. The voice had sounded exactly like his sister. I could see the recognition hit him a second later. His face drained of color. That sounded like, I know, Lena said quietly. The forest shifted around us. Wind slid through the branches above, but it made no sound. The trees leaned inward slightly, their tall trunks tightening the circle of the clearing. Marcus laughed again, though it sounded forced. Okay, someone's messing with us. Out here, I said. There are recording devices, prank stuff. The log creaked, a deep, wet sound. The hollow seemed to widen slightly, not physically, but the darkness inside thickened, and the cold air pouring out became colder. My breath fogged faintly in front of me. Lena leaned closer. Do you hear that? At first I thought it was wind. Then I realized it was breathing. Slow, measured, coming from deep inside the trunk. Marcus aimed the flashlight deeper. The beam flickered. For a moment it illuminated something pale far inside the hollow. Something smooth, something curved. Then the light died. The clearing fell into dim gray twilight beneath the trees. Battery's dead, Marcus muttered. The whisper returned, this time from right beside my ear. Daniel! I spun around. No one stood there, but the log had moved. Only a few inches. Still, it hadn't been touching that patch of moss before. Now it was. Marcus noticed too. Did that thing just shift? The ground near the hollow looked freshly disturbed. Loose soil scattered outward in small arcs, like something had pushed its way through recently, or was pushing its way back in. Lena ran her hand along the bark. It trembled faintly beneath her palm. Guys, she said softly. Trees don't move. The whispering grew louder. Not one voice now. Several. Overlapping. Soft. Testing. Lena. Marcus. Daniel. The voices sounded familiar in unsettling ways. My father's low tone. A childhood friend I hadn't spoken to in years. Lena's own voice repeating her name. Marcus stepped back. This isn't real. The log creaked again. The hollow widened further. The bark along its edges peeled slightly outward. Teeth. The smell intensified, wet earth, fungus, and something metallic. Blood. Lena whispered, It's calling us. The forest responded. Birdsong vanished completely. Wind died. Even the insects fell silent. The clearing felt suddenly deeper, as if the trees had leaned closer while we weren't looking. Marcus shook his head. It's just echoes. Sound bouncing through the hollow. Then the log spoke again. Not whispering. Speaking. In Marcus's exact voice. Come look. Marcus froze. That's not funny. But the voice came again. Perfectly him. Come look. The hollow shifted wider. Something inside scraped against wood. I saw movement deep within the darkness. Not a body. More like a shape sliding along the tunnel walls. Lena grabbed my arm. It's learning our voices. The log rolled slightly. A low grinding motion. This hollow now faced Marcus directly. The opening had widened enough to swallow a person crawling. The interior glistened wetly. The voices whispered again. Soft, patient, closer. Marcus stumbled backward, but the ground behind him had changed. The path we'd entered from was gone. Trees now stood there, thick and tightly packed, their trunks leaning inward like bars. The clearing had closed. Lena's breathing quickened. It's trapping us. The log shifted again. A slow roll forward. The hollow tilted upward, like a mouth opening. Cold air rushed out. The whispers became layered murmurs, each voice repeating our names over and over in slightly different tones. Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. I felt something tugging at my memory. Fragments of voices I'd known my whole life. The log wasn't just copying them. It was remembering them. Marcus suddenly shouted. Look! Inside the hollow, deep within the darkness, something pale slid forward. A limb, long, jointed wrong. It touched the inner wall, leaving fresh claw marks as it pulled itself closer. The voices fell silent. Then one spoke. My mother's voice, perfectly clear. Come inside. The ground trembled. The hollow expanded, with splitting slowly along the trunk's length. The entire log was opening. Marcus grabbed Lena's arm. We're getting out of here. But when we ran for the trees, the clearing stretched. The distance doubled. The log rolled again behind us. Closer. Its open hollow now impossibly large. And the voice followed. Soft. Right behind us. Daniel. I didn't turn around. None of us did. We ran until the forest sounds returned. Wind in branches. Insects buzzing. Distant birds. Only then did we stop. Hours later, we finally found the trail. Marcus said nothing the whole way back. Neither did Lena. But just before we reached the parking lot, she grabbed my sleeve. Daniel. I turned. Her eyes were wide. Did Marcus come out of the clearing with us? The three of us had entered. But now, only two sets of footprints trailed behind us in the dirt. And from somewhere deep in the forest far behind, a new voice whispered softly through the trees. In Marcus's voice, Lena,